The Chicago Bears offense added some new wrinkles against the New England Patriots that really helped them fire on all cylinders for 4 quarters. So we're going to dive into this Bears All-22 tape to take a closer look at what worked so well.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lorin Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook, join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk, and make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today, and hopefully every single day. On the show today, we're going to go through some of the new wrinkles and what worked so well in this Bears offense. We'll start with the quarterback run game, the big new thing that really catalyzed, I think, a lot of the success that they had in this game. We'll look at how much variety the Bears put into it and why it was so effective in a game like this. Then we'll look at some of the other things that went well for them offensively, some different things formationally, some things with the pass protection that seemed to work well, and a couple of the little things that stood out as room for still improvement there. And we're not going to completely overlook this Bears defense either. We'll wrap up looking at that side of the ball. Nothing earth-shattering there, but some notes that came out from rewatching this film from the coach's tape perspective. The big wrinkle, though, this quarterback running game in a very specific, intentional, structured manner. We've seen Justin Fields have success with his legs this season, but quite often it is on plays that are called and designed as passing plays where the pass protection breaks down. Fields has to escape the pocket or sometimes leaves the pocket too early, but regardless, ends up scrambling beyond the line of scrimmage and becoming a runner on a play that was otherwise called a pass. And it bailed Justin Fields out of a lot of situations, and they were very successful plays quite often, and it was a lot of what was carrying the Bears along in some of those games. But it wasn't necessarily intentional designed quarterback running in previous weeks compared to what we saw against the New England Patriots, where there were a number of plays where Justin Fields is the designed ball carrier, and the offensive line, the blocking is not only run blocking, but run blocking specifically for the quarterback. Not even just like, if you think a zone read, your standard read option, as you might see in Madden, right? The offensive line on those plays is still blocking for the running back. You leave one guy unblocked and the quarterback reads him, and if the quarterback keeps it, he's running away from his blocking as a result of that play. So, it's still effective, and it's still a good part of the quarterback run game, and the Bears did that against the Patriots intentionally. But there was more designed for the quarterback types of running plays in there. And what I liked about it so much was that there was such a variety. It wasn't like, okay, we found our one QB run play, and we're going to run that same QB run play 5 or 10 times, right? There was such a mix of concepts, of rushing concepts, of blocking concepts up front that kept the Patriots guessing and really stressed the Patriots defense in some different ways. So they couldn't just always predict and assume, okay, here's when the quarterback run is going to happen, or when there is a quarterback run, here's exactly what it's going to look like, because the Bears put a lot of different dressing on it and did a lot of different ways of doing that. I'll run through some quick examples for you. There was one where they call it like a bash type of concept where the blocking, it's a read option type play, but instead of the blocking being for the running back, the blocking is for the quarterback. Essentially, you sort of like flip the directions that you're going to go, where if the quarterback reads it correctly, and if the defender is not going after the quarterback will follow the blocks in front of him or hand it off to somebody who goes away from the blocking scheme. But what the Bears did with this is, instead of it being an option with the running back, it was an option with a wide receiver coming on a jet sweep. And so the jet sweep is running away from the blocking, which the blocking is going left, the jet sweep is going right, and Fields has a mesh point handoff with the jet sweep receiver. And if the end man on the defensive line of scrimmage is waits there for the jet sweep, then Fields can keep it and run away from him, run left. But if the end man on line of scrimmage crashes down on Fields, he can give it to the jet sweep, who has the momentum going away from the unblocked defender into space. But with the blocking up front on that play, the Bears also pulled their right tackle and their right guard from right to left as lead blockers for Justin Fields. So pulling the guards in the opposite direction of the jet sweep. And so all of a sudden, the defense is following the wide receiver on the jet sweep and reading Fields on that potential handoff. And as they're following the jet sweep to the offensive right, the right side of the offensive line is pulling around going left. And there's 2 blockers extra in front for Justin Fields, who keeps it on the read correctly and runs for a nice gain on that play. So there's a lot of different misdirection going on. There's pulling linemen that are following the quarterback instead of the running back. It can be very complicated for the defense to read, but it's pretty simple for the quarterback and for the offense to execute. Later on, they came back on Justin Fields' touchdown run. They show the same jet motion from left to right. And Fields doesn't even really read this one. He kind of just fakes the jet motion, which gets the whole defense moving to the right. And Fields just scrambles, taking off to the left. I don't think there was really a read on the play, but it's sort of designed to be a read in the play, but he didn't really read anything. He just took off with it. But, the wide receiver comes over and blocks a defensive lineman, and the left tackle pulls around that wide receiver out into space. Fields cuts it upfield and uses his speed to really finish that play in the end zone. Then they came back and had a sort of a more traditional zone read option inside zone, but they did it out of a split back formation in the shotgun, and they brought a tight end in motion, and the tight end blocked out for the quarterback as an arc block, didn't block the unblocked player, but went around him to be a lead blocker for Fields. When the unblocked defender attacked the running back, Fields kept it and pulled and had a lead blocker in front of him to get 12 yards. And one more I want to throw in there quick. The Bears had one play, it was like a run pass option where they had the quarterback run the same sort of quarterback draw situation, but had a running back swinging on a screen with receivers as blockers into the flat on the right side. They ran a couple of these quarterback draw screen plays where Fields could have stopped, turned, and thrown to the running back on a running back screen, but the other option was just tuck it and run upfield yourself because the offensive line was blocking for the quarterback draw. The wide receivers were blocking for the running back screen. So all he had to do was read, okay, does the linebacker follow the running back on the screen, or does he stay here to stop me? And I will throw it if he stays here, or if he goes with the running back, I will keep it. Read it correctly, ran the QB draw, and was really effective. So it's you got your regular read option, you got your counter bash, you got your pin and pull, you got your screen quarterback draw, so many different ways that they ran the quarterback running game intentionally with the quarterback as a ball carrier. And it just so happens that your quarterback is not only the fastest player on your offense, but also your biggest ball carrier, 6'3", 230 pounds or whatever he is. He is the most dynamic athlete on the field, and intentionally making him a part of the running game, it sure was very effective against the New England Patriots. And it looks like, based on what we've seen from the Cowboys, it will be effective against them and should be a more regular part of this Bears offense moving forward. It was very good in this game. It was a lot of what helped them be successful. It was not the only thing that was new and different and helped lead to some of their success. So we'll go through some of the other little notes and nuggets from watching this offense on the All-22 film next on Locked On Bears. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to feel 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. They've got simple tools like screening questions that make it really easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can make sure that you're prioritizing who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors, because so many millions of people are on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I bet you might be on LinkedIn too. And if you're not, a bunch of your coworkers and a bunch of your friends and family, I can guarantee they are. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Locked On Podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Birddogs, the really comfortable pants and shorts company that I got to admit, when I first tried Birddogs, I was skeptical. Their shorts and pants have built-in linings inside of them. And I didn't know if I would like having the linings, up in your personal business there, kind of like a swimsuit type lining. But boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I surprised. And boy, are they comfortable. Like, it's the perfect fit. I didn't want something like tight and constricting down there, but Birddogs are nice and loose and easy to roll with, but still give you that sort of comfort and that hug. I mean, it's just a really high quality product. Birddog joggers, by the way, one of the new products they just launched, sweatpants. They're higher quality than Lululemon and $20 cheaper. So you got to check them out. They're really all sorts of great products for you for your lower half. Go to birddogs.com and enter in our promo code Locked On, and they're going to throw in a free Birddogs rope hat. That's birddogs.com, promo code Locked On, and boom, a free Birddogs rope hat with your pair of Birddogs, the most comfortable shorts, pants, and sweatpants with built-in liners. You will not take these things off, I promise. This Bears offense took off in large part due to the success of the quarterback running game. But there was more to it than that. You know, obviously there's more to the offense as a whole, but there were other kind of subtle tweaks that we saw them go through in this game. Some were, I think, matchup specific to what the New England Patriots offered, and some were maybe more general trends that we'll be looking to see, you know, how they move forward. You know, I think compared to previous games, right, they went back to a lot of empty formations in the shotgun. Sometimes he'd have players in the backfield and then motion them out empty. But when you got 5 receivers spread out, it really makes the defense show more of its hand. You know, there's less you can disguise when you have 5 people lining up, and you need to at least show some kind of defender standing near them. If you're going to blitz or whatever, it can often show the coverage a little bit easier for the quarterback. So I think that helps Justin Fields. We saw them move the pocket a lot, not even always on play action rollouts, but sometimes out of shotgun design, just sort of quarterback rollout, moving pocket type plays to change where he's throwing the ball from and make his legs a threat on those plays. And then the defense has to sort of respond to his legs, and maybe they leave their spot in coverage because of that threat of a potential quarterback run. We saw them go back to a little bit higher rate of play action overall, which I think was working. They were still mixing in a lot of screen passes, which has been a heavy element of this Bears offense. But I think they went to a much more frequent use of 2 running back sets in the shotgun. Most often it seemed to be Montgomery and Ebner or Herbert and Ebner. Rarely was it Montgomery and Herbert together in those 2 back sets, but it gave them a lot of flexibility in the running game and the passing game because, of course, all of the Bears running backs offer varying levels of threats as receivers in addition to ball carriers. And so, they had plays where Treston Ebner or David Montgomery was a lead blocker, like on a quarterback draw or on a handoff, a run pass option. Like the second running back becomes basically a fullback, even though they're not Carey Blasing game. They still work as a lead blocker. They can be ball carriers. They can send them in motion to be, a potential screen option, like on that quarterback draw play we mentioned. They can motion them out to wide. They motioned them to tight end a couple of times and had them stay in and block just from at the line of scrimmage to help the offensive tackles, as opposed to being in the backfield and being more of a backside blitz pickup based on where that pass rush might come from. So I think that was a wrinkle to get those running backs on the field together a little bit more that seem to be more intentional in this game. I don't know if that's the specifics of the Patriots matchup or if that's something we'll see more of. I imagine you just say, hey, the running back is a position of strength in this offense. It's the most talented skill position they have. Should probably have more of them on the field more often because they're just good players when you can get the ball in their hands, as evidenced by Khalil Herbert's untouched screen. It was a wide receiver screen to a running back for a touchdown, downfield where Fields made the nice arm adjustment. Get the ball into their hands, even if it's in the passing game and in other ways, in different ways in the quarterback run game. Use them as misdirection, and good things happen for your offense. Specific to the Patriots matchup, it looked like to me, I didn't track this to give a number or a percentage on it, but anecdotally, we watched the Bears in terms of the route concepts they were running. They would have more tighter splits where you'd have wide receivers lined up closer to each other horizontally in proximity in the formation. So even if you have 3 receivers or 2 receivers to a side, the amount of space in between them, based on where they're lining up, was a little bit tighter. So you had more rub route type plays because we know and we saw that the Patriots ended up continuing their trend of being a heavy man coverage team. A lot of, cover 1 and occasionally 2-man, but a lot of cover 1 and cover 0 in this game. So it's just one-on-one. You got to beat your guy. And if you can have your receivers close together and have their routes cross paths, it makes the defenders have to either pass things off or cross paths, and leads opportunities to create extra separation that way or create miscommunications that way. And the Bears definitely found a few of those throughout this game that looks a little more like Patriots game plan based on the man coverage you're going to see. Because, of course, in zone, you're just passing off the receivers. You're not manned up. You're not following one of them specifically. It's just whoever kind of comes to you. So I thought that was very effective in this game. Overall, just from an evaluation standpoint, I thought the pass protection was pretty darn, I hate to use the word good, right? Because it never feels great. And, you don't want to say, oh, problem solved, offensive line is good. It's still not a great offensive line, but the pass protection was passable. The pass protection got the job done in this game. Certainly the weakness up front was Larry Borum. That one was pretty obvious even from watching it the first time through, that more of the pressure was coming versus the right tackle. There were a couple moments when Braxton Jones had errors, but otherwise was, typical sort of Braxton Jones. But, you got to give Sam Mustafa credit, believe it or not. I mean, he had a pretty good game overall. He was not particularly vulnerable in pass protection. Michael Schofield in at left guard had a couple of communication error type plays. There was one that came through, I think, for a sack, or I don't remember if it was a sack or if it was just a play that Fields had to get rid of the ball quickly, where the protection, someone was confused about what the protection was supposed to be, and they let pass rushers through. But like from a individual like one-on-one pass block winning percentage type feeling, I don't have numbers on this, but the interior guys all played pretty darn well and did their jobs. The pressure was more so coming from those tackle spots, and even then, it wasn't like an unholy amount of pressure caused directly by poor offensive line play. So I think they largely did their job, and it was a big part of why Fields was able to be in rhythm quite a bit more in this game. One thing that stood out to me that we should be keeping, that the Bears need to be keeping a close eye on moving forward, was a little bit of a tendency thing, that the majority of the time that the Bears brought a second tight end onto the field, whether it was Trevin Wesco or Ryan Griffin, that was a big tell that they were going to run the ball in some way, shape, or form. Ryan Griffin played 11 snaps in this game. 10 of them were running plays. 1 was a passing play. Trevon Wesco played 20 plays in this game, 4 passing plays, 16 running games. So between the two of them, they played 31 plays, and only 5 of them were passes. So 80% of the time that one of those tight ends was on the field, the Bears were running the ball. That's a 1-game sample size, and so that's not to say that it's a season-long tendency in quite that same extreme, but something to keep an eye on for the Bears in future weeks, to say, hey, like, make sure that that you're not giving away what the play call is going to be based on what type of personnel are on the field, because generally it was like 3 wide receivers equals pass, 2 or 3 tight ends equals run, which is always generally going to be a tendency. Teams tend to run more with heavier personnel and pass more with more receivers. Like, that's not earth-shattering, but to the extreme that it was like 80% split is something that teams can start to pick up on if you don't break that tendency more over time. But all of that is to say, like, the Bears offense threw a lot of different things out there. It worked very well. They mixed things up. It was fresh. It was in rhythm. It made sense. It fit the players' skill sets largely very well, including, like the Bears offensive line. The quarterback running plays and getting them out in space, and these screen plays and these downfield, like, Ryan Poles wanted a more athletic, thinner, lighter, faster offensive line, and you saw them run really well in a game like this. So they seem to be finally getting a better sense of what their personnel does and doesn't do well, and they've tailored an offense much more to that, largely focused on your star quarterback, Justin Fields. I don't want to completely overlook the defense that had some really nice moments in this game as well. It wasn't like an earth-shattering scheme change or anything like that, but we'll go through some of the different notes that stood out from this All-22 film and some standouts on that side of the ball to give them credit as well. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy sports, because with PrizePicks, you're not competing against other people. You are in complete control. It's you versus the house. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Not just for Bears players, over or under Justin Fields passing yards, David Montgomery rushing yards, Darnell Mooney receiving yards, etc., but really, like, legitimately pretty much any sport. All the major professional sports, college sports, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, disc golf, cricket, and more. I mean, PrizePicks has 1,000 ways to play, and it's really easy to enter. You can make your entries in 60 seconds or less, and when you're ready to withdraw, it's safe, fast, and easy as well. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. You understand. Just don't forget to enter that promo code LOCKEDON at signup for an instant deposit match up to $100. This Bears defense had vulnerable moments here and there, and of course, there's always room for them to allow fewer points than they did. I mean, 14 is still a darn good, a great performance, right? You can always do better. You can't do better than a shutout, so there's always room to improve. But overall, really strong defensive performance. And a few things stood out to me in what the Bears were able to do. First of all, the tackling as a whole felt a lot sharper. There were still a couple of missed tackles here and there, but largely, especially the linebackers, like Roquan Smith and Nick Morrow, when they were getting to players, they were bringing them down. It was you weren't giving up a lot of extra yards after the catch, because the player catches the ball and makes the first guy miss. Or, in the running game, right? The running back's not bouncing off the first two tacklers and getting an extra 5 yards after contact. That was frustrating at times earlier in the season. And I think that's a big part of why the Bears' run defense was better in this game. They were more aggressive. They were playing with a lead sometimes, and that also helped in that process. But I think just the sharpness of the tackling across the board was much, much better. It seemed like the guys were dialed in and locked in and maybe a little healthier and fresher as a result as well. In terms of the pass rush, I also thought they were able to be a little bit more disruptive up front, and it didn't result in a bunch of sacks necessarily, but there was more guys winning their one-on-ones. And I will say, the Bears have been slowly dialing up their stunts more and more. They're among now the league leaders in how often they're stunting pass rushers, exchanging pass lanes. It hasn't resulted in extremely high pressure rates. They're still, I think, over the course of the season, the lowest in the NFL in terms of pass rush pressure rate, while being one of the higher teams in terms of stunt rates. But still, it looked like there was a high motor, high effort type thing. And plus, getting their hands up for batted passes was really impressive. I wondered if defensive coordinator Alan Williams would continue the trend that we saw against the Washington Commanders on 2 Thursdays ago, but the last game, where seemingly every third down, they came with a blitz package at the Commanders, and it was largely very, very effective. I kind of had a feeling that some of that was going to be game plan specific, but also you wonder if the Bears are recognizing, hey, the pass rush has not been good enough. We need to blitz more in order to get a more effective pass rush. That was not the case against the New England Patriots. I think they blitzed Bailey Zappi, I think 4 times, and there was 1 or 2 on Mac Jones in there, out of the 25, 30 passing plays total between the two of them. So it clearly wasn't a big part of the game plan to send the heat at these Patriots quarterbacks. But I thought it was interesting the way those blitzes ended up paying off, where it was pretty much boom or bust. So on the 4 blitzes of Bailey Zappi, you had 1 sack, 2 plays that were total under pressure, but so two of the 4 blitzes caused pressure on Zappi. 2 of the 4 were picked up, and he was able to deliver throws. So you had 1 sack, 1 interception on one of the plays that he was blitzed, and then one of the blitz plays was the downfield bombed on the left side of the field to Devontae Parker, where Jalen Johnson was with him in tight one-on-one coverage, and Parker just made a really impressive catch against otherwise pretty tight coverage and a really nice throw. Zappi just had a perfect ball in that kind of situation against the blitz. And the 4th play was also a completion for about 20 yards, and I can't remember specifically what the play was, but blitzing Zappi 4 times, 2 of them were huge wins for the defense, and 2 of them were explosive plays for the offense. So it was a bit boom or bust in this game that kind of caused some of the challenges there. But, for example, the one to Devontae Parker, that, it wasn't a great throw because the blitz, right? It wasn't the Bears blitzed and then they were short a man in coverage, and that's why Zappi was able to find to make that throw. No, the blitz was just essentially a non-factor in his ability to get the ball up, but it was also a non-factor in the coverage on that play. It was otherwise pretty tight coverage from Jalen Johnson. So the blitz rates drops down, and I think that's probably going to continue to just be a game plan related thing. We're still not seeing the Bears win their pass rushes enough, but it was enough. It functioned as enough in this game against the Patriots, even though in terms of pass rush rate, they still weren't generating a ton of pressure overall. But I did think it was disruptive enough at times that helped this Bears defense go in quite a big way. Speaking of Devontae Parker, though, and Jalen Johnson, the Bears largely had Jalen Johnson shadow coverage Devontae Parker across the field. It wasn't every single play, but more often you saw Jalen Johnson moving around and at times lining up in the slot or onto the other side of the field. Because in a typical game, right, pretty much Kindle Vildor stays on one side, Jalen Johnson stays on the other side, and of course, Kyler Gordon will come in for the slot and kick. Vildor won't be on the field in base defense, but for the most part, Jalen Johnson has spent the majority of the season playing as the Bears, essentially the right cornerback in the offense. But in this game, he played 13 snaps on the left side. They mostly left Kyler Gordon to handle in the slot, and Parker didn't really go in the slot much. But we're seeing Jalen Johnson move around a little bit more, and certainly a lot more trailing in specifically trying to take down Devontae Parker in this game. And when you look at those guys matched up one-on-one in coverage, Parker had one completion. It was that play on the bomb down the left sideline where the coverage was not bad. It was just a better throw and a better catch, and sometimes that's what he can do. But otherwise, the other two catches that Devontae Parker had was when the Bears weren't in man coverage. So just because Jalen Johnson is shadowing Parker across the field doesn't mean it's man-to-man coverage on every play. So there are some plays when pre-snap he's going to be lined up across from Parker, and he's going to end up, whatever route Parker runs, he ends up passing off to someone else. And those happen to be the two other catches that Parker ended up having in this game. But otherwise, Jalen Johnson pretty well shut him down besides that one play going downfield. Also have to highlight Jaquan Brisker, not only for the interception, which I don't want to overlook, and of course it deserves all the praise in the world. He one-handed and a great play, but we all saw that play. I mean, that's sort of the obvious thing we saw on the TV copy, but watching the All-22, I mean, not only was that an impressive play, but it was indicative of what we saw from him throughout the game in terms of being very just sharp, instinctual, reactive, aggressive, almost like proactive, right? Like where he's, as soon as the quarterback is turning to make the throw, he's breaking on the pass. Like he's making the decision at the same time as the quarterback. He's seeing it early. He's predicting accurately where the ball is going to go, but he's not being over aggressive and getting burned when he's getting too aggressive on those plays. So he's really settling in and really playing like the promising safety that we saw coming out of Penn State. And it's exciting to see Jaquan Brisker continuing to grow. Throughout this season, and as he's gotten more and more comfortable in his career. And I think he and Eddie Jackson are a really, really fun duo to watch on the back end of this Bears defense. I'm excited to see what they're going to have in store for the Dallas Cowboys next week. Certainly, I think there's some things offensively that the Bears game plan can play well into where the Cowboys have struggled. We'll be breaking that all down for you as the week goes on. Crossover Thursday with our friends Marcus and Landon from Locked On Cowboys. We'll put together a game plan on Friday as well. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If wherever you're listening to the Locked On Bears podcast, or if you're watching on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, click that little bell next to the subscribe button to make sure you're keeping up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen each and every single day. We really appreciate everybody who tunes in and making us your first listen. Now that we're wrapping up, if you're looking for your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reaction, big game recaps, and the take of the day across all major sports. We're your team every day, and on Locked On Sports Today, we're not every team every day, but we're all the biggest teams every single day. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, on the Odyssey app, Spotify, Apple, and so much more. So check out Locked On Sports Today. Come on back for Locked On Bears tomorrow, and make sure you come back for that next opportunity to bear down.